In this episode, I want to tell you about a real experience that was lived by a person named Massimiliano. This individual, as their life progressed and their spirituality grew through their actions and experiences, was chosen by the brothers, or if you prefer to call them aliens, from the hollow earth for a journey of sharing with the purpose of continuing the process of disclosing the extraterrestrial and intra-terrestrial lives, the love and support that these beings continue to offer. Now, many of us are conditioned by the five senses upon which we base our perception. When we start expanding our state of consciousness towards other senses, and there are truly many, from telepathy to subtle vision to clear hearing, we become gods enclosed in a vessel of wine. So here is the fantastic story of Massimiliano. 15 days were something deeply unsettling for me because I was not at all prepared to see and conceive what I was witnessing. Souls and bodies of light, communications, unfolding visions. Sensing the subtle bodies, the perception of energy channels opening up, and communications coming from the sky, the stars, and the sun. In short, it was something that essentially flattened the three-dimensionality to prepare me for something that would then go beyond any of my beliefs. I was inside this circle of wheat, and there was interaction with any energy, spiritual, physical, or energetic force that at a certain point opened up my channels of perception. Simultaneously, it was a process of co-creating reality, in the sense that in the following days, it was as if I had contributed or begun to access information, traveling on timelines and on energetic frequencies that were previously entirely unknown. So, it was an action that took place on two fronts, what others were doing, but also what you, as a living being, were doing. I was practically able to perceive a complex interaction in what I later discovered to also be my multidimensionality and my allocation in these same dimensions, where we exist as beings capable of that very dimension. After these 15 days in which I saw and experienced a little bit of everything, one beautiful evening, when I go to sleep around 11:45 p.m., I hear a female voice calling me at the door, which was my mother's voice. I should note that most of the signals given to me in this experience were metaphors to be deciphered, containing a very important secondary message. The initial approach was to use my mother's voice, even though my mother was not present outside. It was meant to make me understand that your calling was primarily orchestrated by the Great Mother, the planet Earth. So, after many years, I realized that the true contact was with the planet Earth. It was Mother Earth who was contacting me through these beings living within her, deeply connected to the inner nature of the planet. One of them appeared in front of me, and I had no idea who this tall guy, a little over 2 meters, was. He had a special radiance, not just in his face. Later, I discovered that he was a kind of spiritual projection they make from their discs. It's as if they can appear in front of you, but not physically, by emitting their spiritual body. So, what I saw was not just a projection, but the very spiritual radiance of that individual. I could feel it. I felt energy coming from him. This guy was wearing a harmonious robe, and without beating around the bush, he said, "Look, you should go to the zone 720 because they are waiting for you." It was as if it had already been decided, but I couldn't understand. In fact, I understood that everything had been decided before my incarnation, but the amnesia of earthly life made me forget everything to live my three-dimensional human life. We had some interaction, but I felt fear within me that they were somehow purifying. After the initial scare where I told him, "If we have to go, let's go together," he told me it wasn't possible because he was a projection, not solid. I found myself with my eyes closed at home, curled up on the couch, trembling and distraught. I thought, oh my God, what does he want from me? The scenario that unfolded seemed to be made up of 1,000 different potentials, and I couldn't grasp a single one. I was feeling agitated, but then they practically soothed me in my consciousness. I gathered my courage, got into my car, and drove up to this place, which is a hill above my town. He told me to look for a thread of light that was falling to the ground, and I searched for this thread of light. But I couldn't see it at all until I followed a small road that led behind a farmhouse, down some fields, and from a cloud, I saw this thread of light emerging. There was something inside that cloud, but at first, I didn't think about it. I was captivated by curiosity and somewhat agitated by what I was seeing. I parked my car, and I walked towards this thread of light, and right there, I saw a little girl and a soldier. So I wondered, okay, is the universe playing a trick on me here? Because what do a soldier and a little girl have to do with this? The little girl belonged to them and was there to facilitate the contact because she was not afraid and she exuded sweetness, and her knowledge and expressiveness were on par with an adult. But that soldier didn't fit in. He was extremely agitated, unable to speak, and trembling. When I asked him my only question, he replied that he didn't know how he had gotten there. He knew nothing, was extremely frightened, but at the touch of this little girl's hands, he, and probably what I call the spiritual touch, took me. These beings who are masters of their light somehow communicate with your light body, and transmit states of being. They instantly permeate you so you can be scared, intimidated, terrified, but the touch of their aura, which is fully self-aware, instantly communicates new information to your subtle bodies, your chakra valves, your mind, and your entire body remains as if in ecstasy, practically caressed by their energies. It was a moment, and he asked, "Shall we go in?" We entered into this semi-bright portal. This ray created a sort of strange opening that you couldn't quite focus on with your eyes because it was another projection. The moment I stepped into that light, an intelligent light controlled by the disc, I instantly lost all contact with earthly reality. I found myself inside an incredibly bright, white environment with that character who was in front of my house but now in front of me. He was tangible and real. I immediately began to sense his spiritual presence, his dialogue being both telepathic and verbal because he wasn't speaking audibly yet. He told me I had to enter a wall of white light that resembled a wall of milk, and I entered it. It took me years to remember what happened inside because there, I completely lost contact with myself as they'd put you in a trance wave to undergo a fundamental process, the fusion of the aura. After many years, when I truly reached the necessary vibrational frequency to recall those experiential memories, I remembered the whole event. What they did inside created a complete fusion between my consciousness, my unconscious, and my subconscious, the soul and the higher self. They isolated my lower self, isolating the lower portals because all of us humans have both an inner spark and an upper spark. The lower spark interacts with the upper one, the higher worlds, the spiritual worlds, the worlds of God. While the lower spark interacts with the lower God, the evolving mother and father. They closed these lower accesses to eliminate the downward gravitation and increase spiritual elevation. After a while, I regained my senses, and this being took me by the arm, leading me out of this wall of white light, so I saw him in a glow of light. I saw all his subtle bodies, his spiritual light. I saw waves emanating from his wonderful being. The communication that occurred was even deeper, like speaking with a brother you've known forever. There was a part of me in contrast as if I knew nothing about what was happening, and another part of me felt things but couldn't decipher them. I felt a love I had never experienced for anyone on Earth, and we talked for quite a while, all the while observing as my eyes were on him. I saw a landscape passing under this vehicle, and I thought, we must be on something that's flying. I asked, are we on a flying vehicle? He referred to it not being a vehicle powered by coal, and at this point, a discussion opened up about the energies we consume from the planet and the waste they always leave behind. Soon, I started to see something very difficult to explain. I found myself inside the planet. For me, it could have been an earthly world, but at one point, I saw in the distance through a window another pilot suspended from the seat coming from above. We saw this window and this evergreen landscape, and I saw pyramids. Specifically, there were 6 pyramids, 3 on one side and 3 on the other, with a large central structure featuring enormous blue stars above. They were very similar to those you see in Mexico with the stepped pyramids of the Maya. I saw these beautiful lights above them. These steps were perfect, like new bright white marble, but who knows what material they were made of, because these structures are used to collect universal energy and distribute it to the planet in entirely different ways. They don't use copper wires. They use entirely different technology, probably wave projection. It showed me the contrast with our world, which burns oil and coal, while they simply harness the energy of the universe without doing anything except building these technological structures that absorb and breathe it. We are out of sync in this reality. We consume, destroy, leave all kinds of waste, and do nothing good because we are not yet aligned with the universe. There are already inventions in the possession of governments that use similar energies, and we could easily stop consuming things that create waste, especially avoiding consuming the lifeblood of Mother Earth. Contrary to what scientists say, oil is not a product of dinosaurs, but is generated by the Earth, by the magmatic systems, by the expulsion of a fluid that is the Earth's memory. So, oil is connected to the Earth's akashic. It is the fluid of the Earth's memory. We are sucking the memory from our planet. As for the akashic memory, we can investigate it in the third and fourth dimensions, but there are higher akashic levels that we cannot touch because the highly cognitive universal intelligence does not allow immature societies to destabilize the flow of planets. So, we descend more or less near that area, and there was like a sort of spaceport, with a black pavement that looked like the darkest marble, like a mirror of black reflecting the sky. The disc stops, he escorts me to the exit, and another atomic hatch opens because in that place, things are not in motion. Another one of their guys welcomes me to their planet, but he welcomes me as part of his audience. As I exit, he projects me directly to that star that was vibrating high, which I thought of as a star like our sun. The beautiful thing is that it transmitted a feminine energy that I had never felt before. We are talking about the counterpart of the external sun. The external sun is the masculine energy of creation, and the inner sun is the feminine energy of manifestation. For the first time in my human physical body, I experienced the purity of Mother Earth's heart. Inside the star, there are higher dimensional hierarchies based on the principle of the feminine energy in full emanation and compassion with the masculine energy. These two forces are in a state of union. The heart of the Earth in its chart receives the connection of the external sun, captures it to generate life in all dimensions, and most importantly, to sustain the physical life of us humans on the surface, and also their own. That's why connecting with the feminine heart of the Earth is fundamental for the success of the spirit and true evolution, which is no longer based on masculine energy, as it was in human history, where masculine energy became ego, oppression, and domination over all women throughout human history. This means cutting off the evolution of the human species, but today we have the opportunity to balance these two forces, and there will be many beings who will bring this knowledge. This star welcomes me with wonderful motherliness, takes me down from the disk, and immediately tells me to board another levitating vehicle. It was like an elongated donut, without wheels, without anything. There were 4 seats, and I, that military officer who now presented himself in an outfit as white as I had been dressed, with an outfit of that dimension and not of our third dimension, because inside, in addition to the association of the soul, I underwent a polar atomic level transformation to allow my form to enter their dimension, which is not the third dimension. There was also another girl I hadn't seen yet, so there had probably been a third disc somewhere that picked up this girl who never uttered a word from the beginning to the end of the experience. Probably her state of ecstasy had disconnected her from dialogue. She was and was not present. She saw us, heard us, but couldn't respond. She was completely entranced. They showed us what their inner world was like, a spectacle of natural wonder where there is no decay. I couldn't see a single dry leaf or a dry branch on a tree. Everything seemed perpetually alive, but above all, communicative. The plants transmitted their life and presence, their consciousness to me. Somehow, my telepathic state emerged. A language I wasn't used to deciphering, so I could feel the lovingness of the plants and their love for the humans who breathe their oxygen. This deep connection with nature awakens compassion, a love that brings tears to your eyes. It was like a return to the truth of something we've forgotten. We must learn to strip ourselves of any armor and superstructure to truly know ourselves and the origin of our hearts. There were lakes, rivers, birds of all species, very few dwellings, but of an indescribable art. The vegetation in these houses was almost haphazard. There was no geometry in the sense that I saw a sort of garden, but it was spontaneous. There were no row houses, and they have a total respect for nature. Their cities are on the surface and are non-intrusive, but most of their life takes place underground in the sense that they create incredibly beautiful environments. They are all interconnected because there are underground tunnels that allow them to travel without disturbing nature or the skies. They are not invasive even in the skies because they have a deep sense of respect for the communication between the inner star and the surface of the inner realm. This is to not disrupt the natural contact with other spiritual forms. I approach him, we embrace quickly, and he immediately shows me the scenario of 6 enormous celestial vault panels all around us, where scenarios began to unfold. They weren't projectors but temporal windows, opening windows in the space-time, and you see things that happened in that time as if they were right in front of you in their reality. The sounds, the smells, everything is penetrating. We talk about existential generations that no longer exist on Earth, the earliest cultures on the planet billions of years ago. They show me how they reached the pinnacle of technology, but were never in balance with spirituality. Since heaven and earth want humanity to know technology, but in harmony with the heavens, with the spirit, with love, with life itself, something that has never happened in the history of previous civilizations. They made various attempts and achieved great strides, but then something went wrong. Evil entered the minds, set them against each other, exploited them as slaves, much like what still happens in our world today. Their civilization primarily takes place underground, where there are truly breathtaking environments. We arrived in this vehicle in front of a mountain, and the young man who was piloting the vehicle told us, "Get out here. Some of my brothers will come to welcome you." He turned back, and as he did, the road of black crystal disappeared. We found ourselves in front of this mountain, gazing at it. The 3 of us were astonished, and we began to converse for a moment. Suddenly, I heard a loud noise coming from the top of that mountain. We looked up and saw the creation of 3 enormous steps, each at least 5 meters high and 80 meters long. We were fascinated by this sight and heard a second light noise, and 4 columns of crystal and gold materialized. These 3 steps were a kind of green alabaster. After these 4 columns, a white dome with a large golden ring appeared. This temple they had built with the 3 steps, 4 columns, and the white and golden dome actually represented the essence of man. The white dome symbolized the white matter of the brain, and the golden ring represented the holiness of thought, thus the realization of the Christ-like mind. Beings dressed in white, much taller than us, materialized, and they literally flew down to us. They touched us, each took us by the hand, and instantly, the weight of our bodies vanished. I felt as light as air, and they flew me to the top of the mountain, where the temple was, and gently placed me on the green crystal floor. This temple was incredibly tall, at least 80 meters, and it made you expand and feel as if something was expanding within you. It was simply the auric body regaining its original expansion, not the compressed one that occurs inside a human body, because we are cosmic beings and have to fit into this physical body. I felt this encounter was something supernatural, something I had forgotten but was beginning to emerge because I was starting to have hints that I couldn't yet fully explain. A man emerged and said to me, "Enter the temple and go to the one who is your teacher." I entered the temple, where there was a portal with 7 rays of light, which were the 7 rays of creation realigning the frequencies of creation that we have in our subtle bodies. I saw this woman and approached her, trying to greet her, but she immediately hushed me to quiet my restless mind. It was like living in a completely different state, and I almost forgot about my human life. There I began to perceive a different, true, and unaltered life, connected to God. This woman showed me an image of our Earth, Europe, Italy, and France on a sort of table. I smiled because I saw the image as a complete mirror image. In other words, I saw France on the right and Greece on the left. She said to me, "You see yourselves from the outside, but we see you from the inside because we are within Mother Earth." I had another collapse there because the memory of the human mind and its false terrestrial knowledge entered. I thought, inside the Earth, there is magma, there's hell. Danda talked about hell, but I'm not dead. At one point, I lost consciousness, and a being came, stroked me, reassured me, and infused me with their energy. I regained consciousness and began to ask myself questions, to which this woman then responded. We must have talked for I don't know how many hours. I should mention that the perception of time was completely different from the 3-dimensional linearity of our world. You are very focused on the moment of now, because that is the moment in which you exist. At a certain point, she said to me, "Now you will be accompanied by one of my temporal mentors." There is a young man who takes my arm and leads me down a corridor. At the end, there is a hall. The hall opens, and I see a very tall man in the center of the hall waiting for me. I go towards him as if drawn along a path by a force beyond my will. It wasn't me moving my steps, but it felt like something else inside. It was the true me, my origin, belonging to their dimension. I approach him, we embrace quickly, and he immediately shows me the scenario of 6 enormous celestial vault panels all around us, where scenarios began to unfold. They weren't projectors, but temporal windows, opening windows in the space-time, and you see things that happened in that time as if they were right in front of you in their reality. The sounds, the smells, everything is penetrating. We talk about existential generations that no longer exist on Earth, the earliest cultures on the planet, billions of years ago. They show me how they reached the pinnacle of technology, but were never in balance with spirituality. Since heaven and earth want humanity to know technology, but in harmony with the heavens, with the spirit, with love, with life itself, something that has never happened in the history of previous civilizations. They made various attempts and achieved great strides, but then something went wrong. Evil entered the minds, set them against each other, exploited them as slaves, much like what still happens in our world today. They showed me everything, from moments that we are beginning to recognize if we talk about Atlantis and Lemuria, and then even more recent civilizations and catastrophes. We arrive at our recent times, the previous history 600-1900. We get to 1945 and seek a glimmer of hope, because that light transmits exactly what they recorded in that event, the death of hundreds of thousands of people, like the first atomic bomb in Japan. They said, we can no longer leave them to their free evolution, but we must intervene in some way, along with the celestial and stellar hierarchies of our galaxy. We committed an abominable act against human civilization. Individuals, to demonstrate their power, destroyed a city with its inhabitants. From that moment, their attention was directed here, because after the war, there were 15,000 to 18,000 nuclear tests in the sea, air, and land. We have devastated our mother. These mindless military individuals, driven by entities, are the same ones who destroyed Melona, the planet between Jupiter and Mars, many millions of years ago. These are the same impetuous souls who want to control technology, who want to dominate the very elements of the planets, so they gave in to atomic power without knowing how to control it. They created weapons in these years, but they didn't only harm human civilization, they harmed our mother planet. The explosions generated powerful electromagnetic waves that damaged the planet's electromagnetic grid and the spiritual communication grid between the Earth and humans. What happened? There was a further frequency detachment between human souls and their consciousness from a genetic state of 2 strings. In some cases, there was a significant genetic decline, leading to other diseases. In short, an unspeakable abomination was committed that the universe has said, stop. Now they must intervene and manage this situation in some way. They purified the seas and skies, because otherwise, we would all be on the other side now due to the thousands of atomic explosions and radiation everywhere. But we are not dead. We are here because they are extremely fraternal and farsighted. They thought about cleaning up as much as possible, but they can't perform miracles. Therefore, by the law of cause and effect, all major diseases were emphasized, generated by this radioactive emission. What I've gathered is that when we embark on our spiritual journey, we don't think about reaching enlightenment directly. It would be a pure illusion. It's a series of steps to be distributed throughout life, accompanied by cosmic beings, spiritual beings, basically all those forces of light working to facilitate the individual's inner consciousness shift. Furthermore, the person who had this experience responded to the following question: is it possible that there will be mass contact with these inner Earth beings soon? Here's the answer. Interactions are diverse. There are preparations for what will be the final or second coming of Christ. There will be moments when humanity will have to face things, and the more we improve ourselves collectively, even if not everyone participates, it matters for the part that is open to self-renewal and returning to the Christic origin within. Contact with the inner world's life forms will occur when there is a shift in dimensions. When I mentioned the preparation for internal dimensional vibration earlier, it means that sooner or later there will be a transition in which prepared humans will experience the famous 3 days of darkness. These will be due to the Earth's realization and its polar inversion. They will be generated by special particles from the Sun's core that will enter the Earth's gravitational field, slowing its rotation gradually and very slowly to prevent disasters. This will appear as an extended period of darkness, 3 days in the shadow and 3 days of light in the lit part. We're not talking about the end of the world. It will never happen. There will simply be very important transitions where humanity looks towards a new reality, but it will be a preparation because there will be a great sigh of relief for another 20 good years in which people can finally work on themselves. They won't feel the weight of evil, the pressure of systems. There will be a true collective change in societies. So, humans will finally be given the freedom to express themselves, to love, and be loved completely. We will have another 30 good years to prepare our consciousness and terrestrial culture. We must prove to the eyes of heaven and God that we are worthy in this last terrestrial culture to make a smooth and peaceful transition without disasters, without cataclysms. These events are present in future timelines. They are the ones that were shown to me during my experience with them. They showed me the future and the future they desire. One of true realization for those who feel the strength of love and spirit in their hearts.